Alcatraz. On the rock in San Francisco Bay sat a prison designed to be inescapable. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary housed America's most dangerous criminals, surrounded by frigid waters and deadly currents. The authorities believed no one could survive the swim to shore. Among the inmates were Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, bank robbers serving lengthy sentences. They were ordinary criminals, but what they planned was extraordinary. For months, the three men worked in near silence, using sharpened spoons and a drill improvised from a vacuum cleaner motor. They chipped away at the deteriorating concrete around the air vents in their cells. They worked only at night, concealing the holes behind false walls made from cardboard. During recreation time, they gathered materials, raincoats stolen from other inmates, which they would glue together to form a raft and life vest. They crafted dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and real hair collected from the barbershop, painting them to appear lifelike in the darkness. On the night of June 11, 1962, they placed the dummies in their beds and squeezed through the widened vents. They climbed through utility corridors to the roof, descended the exterior, and reached the shore. Inflating their makeshift raft, they vanished into the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Prison officials discovered the escape the next morning. A massive manhunt was launched, but no bodies were ever found. The FBI officially closed the case in 1979, concluding they had drowned. Yet evidence discovered decades later suggests they may have survived, disappearing into legend as the only men to escape Alcatraz. The Maze Prison escape. In Northern Ireland's most secure facility, 38 IRA prisoners planned an operation that rivaled military precision. The Maze Prison, also known as Longcash, was built to contain the most dangerous paramilitaries involved in the Troubles. Its H-shaped blocks were designed with multiple security checkpoints, armed guards, and layered perimeter fences. Escape was considered virtually impossible. The Republican prisoners, however, had spent months studying routines, identifying weaknesses, and coordinating their plan across multiple cell blocks. On Sunday, September 25, 1983, the operation began during the afternoon shift change when security was momentarily relaxed. Prisoners produced smuggled guns and knives, overpowering guards one by one. They moved through the facility systematically, locking officers in cells to prevent them from raising the alarm. The coordination was flawless, with each group executing their assigned role. When a food delivery truck arrived at the gates, prisoners hijacked it and concealed themselves inside and underneath the vehicle. The truck approached the final checkpoint. A guard noticed something suspicious and attempted to raise the alarm, but he was overwhelmed in the struggle. The vehicle crashed through the gate and 38 prisoners scattered into the surrounding countryside. It was the largest prison break in British history. Within hours, a massive manhunt was launched, involving thousands of police and military personnel. 19 prisoners were recaptured within days, but the rest remained at large for extended periods. One prison officer died of a heart attack during the escape. The breakout exposed catastrophic security failures and became a propaganda victory for the IRA, demonstrating that even the most secure facilities are vulnerable to coordinated determination. Dannemora. Two convicted murderers in upstate New York accomplished what seemed impossible with help from an unlikely accomplice. Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora was a maximum security prison that had held inmates for over 150 years without a successful escape. Its thick walls and remote location in the Adirondack Mountains earned it the nickname Little Siberia. Richard Matt, serving 25 years to life for kidnapping and murder, and David Sweat, serving life without parole for killing a sheriff's deputy, began planning their escape in early 2015. The two men befriended Joyce Mitchell, a prison tailoring shop supervisor. Over months, they manipulated her into smuggling hacksaw blades, chisels, and drill bits hidden inside frozen hamburger meat. Working at night in their adjacent cells, they cut through steel walls, navigated a maze of catwalks and pipes, and sawed through a steam pipe before emerging from a manhole cover outside the prison walls. On the morning of June 6th, guards discovered the men missing. In their beds were crude dummies made from clothing. On the wall, a taunting note read, "Have a nice day." A massive 3-week manhunt involving hundreds of law enforcement officers swept through the dense forest. Richard Matt was shot and killed on June 26 near the Canadian border. David Sweat was captured 2 days later, just miles from freedom, shot twice but surviving. Joyce Mitchell was sentenced to up to 7 years in prison for her role in the escape. The breakout exposed catastrophic security failures and became a symbol of how corruption can undermine even the most secure systems. Chateau de Vincennes. For 35 years, one man refused to accept his fate in the prisons of 18th century France, escaping multiple times through sheer determination and ingenuity. Henri de Massé de Latude was imprisoned in the Bastille in 1749 at the age of 23 for a bizarre scheme involving a false assassination plot. His crime was foolish, but his sentence was indefinite, a product of the arbitrary justice system under King Louis XV. What followed was one of the longest and most remarkable struggles for freedom in history. Latude's first escape came in 1750 when he and another prisoner constructed a rope ladder from fragments of cloth, firewood, and iron wire gathered over months. They scaled the wall of the Bastille, but Latude was recaptured within weeks. His punishment was transferred to even harsher conditions. Undeterred, he attempted escape after escape, each time caught and transferred to more secure facilities. In 1765, now held at the Chateau de Vincennes, Latude began his most audacious attempt. For years, he secretly constructed another rope ladder, hiding his work from guards through meticulous planning. When the moment came, he descended the fortress wall and fled into the night. He was free for several months before betrayal led to his capture once more. Latude would not taste permanent freedom until 1784, after 35 years of imprisonment for a crime that warranted months at most. He wrote detailed memoirs of his experiences that became a sensation. His story is not simply one of escape, it is a testament to the human refusal to surrender, even when all hope seems lost. Libby Prison. In Civil War Richmond, a converted tobacco warehouse held Union officers captured by Confederate forces. Libby Prison was designed to house far fewer men than the hundreds crammed into its damp, vermin-infested rooms. By the winter of 1864, over 1,000 officers endured brutal conditions, inadequate food, and the constant threat of disease. For many, the prospect of waiting out the war in captivity was unbearable. A group of 15 officers, led by Colonel Thomas Rose, decided to do something about it. They identified an unused cellar beneath the kitchen known as Rat Hell for its population of rodents. Working in shifts, the men began digging a tunnel toward a tobacco shed 60 feet away and outside the prison walls. They used a broken shovel, case knives, and their bare hands. The excavated dirt was concealed in the walls and scattered throughout the building. For 17 days, they dug through frozen ground and crawled through a space barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. The work was suffocating and dangerous, with constant risk of cave-ins or discovery. On the night of February 9, 1864, the tunnel broke through to the surface. In groups of 2 and 3, 109 officers crawled through the narrow passage to freedom. The escape was not discovered until morning roll call. Of those who escaped, 59 eventually reached Union lines. 48 were recaptured and 2 drowned attempting to cross rivers. The mass breakout became a source of embarrassment for Confederate authorities. It demonstrates that even in the darkest confinement, the will to be free can move mountains of earth. Stalag Luft III. British and Allied airmen in a German prisoner of war camp engineered an escape so elaborate it involved hundreds of men working in secret for over a year. Stalag Luft III, located in what is now Poland, was designed specifically to hold captured Air Force officers. The Germans believed it was escape-proof, built on sandy soil that made tunneling difficult, and surrounded by seismograph microphones to detect digging. The prisoners, however, were determined to make it home. Under the leadership of squadron leader Roger Bushell, the prisoners organized an operation of staggering complexity. They dug 3 tunnels simultaneously, codenamed Tom, Dick, and Harry, each extending over 300 feet toward the forest beyond the wire. Prisoners crafted civilian clothing, forged documents, and manufactured compasses from melted phonograph records. More than 600 men contributed to the effort, with specialized teams handling excavation, air supply, and disposal of the sandy soil. The dirt was scattered in gardens and under the barracks, hidden in bags sewn into trouser legs. On the night of March 24, 1944, the escape began. Tom had been discovered months earlier, but Harry reached beyond the fence. 76 men crawled through the tunnel before a guard spotted the 77th emerging from the exit. Of those who escaped, only 3 reached safety. 50 were executed on Hitler's direct orders, shot by the Gestapo in what became known as one of the war's most notorious atrocities. The murders became a war crime prosecuted at Nuremberg. The escape demonstrated that even in captivity, the human spirit refuses to be contained. Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton was a gentleman bank robber who proved as skilled at escaping prisons as he was at robbing banks. Born in Brooklyn in 1901, he began his criminal career in the 1920s, earning a reputation for his polite demeanor and theatrical disguises. When asked why he robbed banks, he allegedly replied, "Because that's where the money is." His charm did not prevent him from receiving lengthy sentences, but no prison seemed capable of holding him for long. In 1945, Sutton was incarcerated at Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, a fortress-like institution designed during the 19th century to break the spirit of inmates through isolation. The walls stood 30 feet high, crowned with guard towers and reinforced by a reputation for being escape-proof. Sutton, however, had other plans. Over months, he gathered materials from the prison workshop, fashioning them into sections of a ladder. He recruited fellow inmates Clarence Clendins and others to assist in the operation. The team worked with meticulous care, hiding their construction from guards during routine inspections. On the night of April 3, 1945, Sutton and 11 other inmates assembled the ladder and placed it against the prison wall. One by one, they climbed over and disappeared into the Philadelphia night. The escape caused a national sensation and profound embarrassment for the prison system. Sutton remained free for 5 years before being recaptured in 1950. Even then, his legend grew when he escaped from yet another facility in 1952. He was finally released in 1969, having spent more than half his life behind bars. His repeated escapes demonstrated that human ingenuity can triumph over even the most imposing barriers. The Texas 7. On December 13, 2000, 7 inmates at the John B. Connolly unit in South Texas executed a plan that would spark a nationwide manhunt. They were serving sentences ranging from armed robbery to murder, each man hardened by years behind bars. What united them was desperation and a willingness to use violence to regain their freedom. They had spent months studying the prison's routines, identifying weaknesses in the security protocol, and waiting for the right moment. That moment came during the afternoon maintenance shift. The 7 overpowered civilian workers in the prison maintenance area, binding and gagging them before stealing their clothing and identification. They raided the prison arsenal, equipping themselves with weapons and ammunition. Dressed as maintenance staff, they walked through multiple security checkpoints, their stolen credentials granting them passage. They commandeered prison vehicles and drove through the front gate, leaving leaving behind 16 hostages locked in a storage room. The escapees split into groups and fled across state lines. On Christmas Eve in Irving, Texas, they robbed a sporting goods store. When police officer Aubrey Hawkins responded to the scene, they ambushed him, firing multiple rounds. The officer died from his injuries, turning the manhunt into a murder investigation. The killing galvanized law enforcement across the nation. Within a month, all 7 were captured. 1 committed suicide rather than surrender. The remaining 6 were sentenced to death. 4 have been executed while 2 remain on death row. The escape demonstrated that even modern prisons remain vulnerable to coordinated violence and deception. El Chapo's tunnel. In a maximum security Mexican prison, the world's most notorious drug lord walked into a shower and vanished. Joaquin Guzman Loera, known as El Chapo, had been captured in February 2014 after 13 years as a fugitive. Authorities placed him in Altiplano Federal Prison, one of Mexico's most secure facilities. His cell was under constant video surveillance and guards monitored his every movement. The Mexican government assured the world that escape was impossible. But beneath the prison floor, a different reality was taking shape. For months, engineers had been excavating a tunnel from a house over a mile away. The passage stretched 1,500 meters underground, equipped with lighting, ventilation, and a modified motorcycle on rails to transport dirt and materials. The operation required precise calculations to ensure the tunnel surfaced exactly beneath Chapo's cell shower, the one blind spot in the surveillance system. On the night of July 11th, 2015, Chapo entered the shower area at 8:52 p.m. When guards checked the video feed 20 minutes later, he had disappeared. They discovered a 20 by 20 inch opening in the shower floor leading to the tunnel below. By the time authorities mobilized, Chapo was long gone. The escape became an international embarrassment for Mexico and demonstrated the staggering resources of the Sinaloa cartel. Chapo remained free for 6 months before Mexican Marines recaptured him in January 2016. He was extradited to the United States in 2017 and now serves life imprisonment at ADX Florence Supermax in Colorado. The tunnel remains a monument to the power that money and determination can wield. Pascal Payet. 3 times Pascal Payet escaped from French prisons, and 3 times he used the same audacious method. Career criminal serving time for murder and armed robbery, Payet became infamous not for his crimes, but for his unprecedented ability to breach France's prison system from above. His escapes exposed critical vulnerabilities in facilities designed to be escape-proof, forcing a complete re-evaluation of aerial security protocols. The first escape occurred in October 2001 from a prison in the French Alps. Accomplices hijacked a helicopter, forced the pilot at gunpoint to land in the prison yard, and plucked Payet from the grounds in a matter of minutes. Authorities recaptured him, but the audacity of the method had been proven. In 2003, while being transferred between prisons, Payet orchestrated another helicopter extraction. Armed men intercepted the helicopter transporting him, overpowered the guards, and flew him to freedom once again. This time, he remained free for 3 years. In July 2007, Payet masterminded his most brazen operation. While imprisoned in Grasse, accomplices hijacked yet another helicopter and landed it directly in the prison courtyard. They used heavy tools to break open the door of his cell block, extracted him, and disappeared into the mountains. He was recaptured months later in Spain after an international manhunt. French authorities finally placed him in solitary confinement in a facility with anti-aircraft defenses. Payet's repeated escapes demonstrated that even modern prisons remain vulnerable when criminals possess sufficient resources and determination. It proves that the greatest security systems are only as strong as their least protected dimension.